So what we do is we formulate and manufacture enteral nutrition. And what that means is that people that can't eat by mouth, they have a feeding tube. And with that feeding tube, they're typically given a formula that is traditionally up to 55% sugar. And so that is a bit distressing as a mom, right? And so we have the only real food powdered meals for enteral nutrition on the market. And I knew, well, the one thing I can do is I know how to feed my daughter well, because 70% of your immune system is in your gut. I can feed her well. That's one thing as a mom I can do.
You have control over.
Right. The thing that I love is that the labs, you can see the labs change within 2 weeks. And then we've had patients like going on to, they're like, oh, my doctor's got me signed up for, they kind of take classes to go on dialysis. I'm in the classes for dialysis and I'm going to be starting. I'm like, well, maybe let's just try this first. And then like 2 weeks, labs improve within 2 months. That particular lady, she was like, she went from almost being stage 5 to stage 3. So it was really awesome to see the improvement for her. And I just love that, it's just so measurable.
We wish you all the best luck on this journey. And I have no doubt that you will succeed. You could see your passion, throughout you talking. I have one final question for you today. And so what has been your recipe to revenue? Hello, welcome back to Recipe to Revenue. It's Leah Messina, your host, and I am here today with Autumn Cullen, the CEO of Whole Story Meals. And I am so excited to have you here with me today to share a little bit about your business and your motivation behind it. And I know we had a chance to chat, prior to this, and I love talking with other moms that are entrepreneurs and in the food and beverage space. So I think we'll touch upon a little bit of that in our conversation today as well. But you have such an interesting story that, we needed to tell it. And I would love for you to just kind of take us back a little bit to the beginning. Obviously you're inspired by your daughter, and she was a big motivation for you to start this business as a two-bed person. So tell us first of all about the business, and then how you were motivated to start it.
Yeah. So what we do is we formulate and manufacture enteral nutrition. And what that means is that people that can't eat by mouth, they have a feeding tube. And with that feeding tube, they're typically given a formula that is traditionally up to 55% sugar. So like maybe maltodextrin, corn syrup, brown rice syrup, something like that. And so that is a bit distressing as a mom, right? And so we have the only real food powdered meals for enteral nutrition on the market. And so that's what we do. We make, and then doctors write a prescription for them and insurance pays for it. So there's a lot of working with dietitians and doctors.
Fantastic.
And so what inspired this is, my daughter was born severely disabled. She's going to be 11 here in a couple of weeks, and she doesn't walk or talk or eat by mouth. She's legally blind and hard of hearing. So she has a lot going on, right? And life with a disabled child can be really difficult. And, this is not another thing that I needed to be difficult. It was the reason, we kind of got into this was I was told she was only going to live to be a year or two and then pass away from the flu or pneumonia. And when you hear that about your child, it's pretty devastating. And, I was a stay-at-home mom, 5 children, and I knew, well, the one thing I can do is I know how to feed my daughter well, because 70% of your immune system is in your gut. I can feed her well. That's one thing as a mom I can do.
You have control over.
Right. And so I can do that. But then when I started looking into the formulas out there, 55% sugar was unacceptable. And I was thinking, I didn't feed my other kids that way. Like, why would I feed my most vulnerable child one of the worst diets I had ever heard of. Like, I just wasn't about to do that. So I started blending at home and giving her food through the blender. That's how
Wow.
we kind of got started. Yeah.
Yeah. So were you personally, before you had your daughter, were you personally interested in nutrition, and, or was this really came out of her experience?
Yeah. So I grew up, my dad is a third generation chiropractor. My mom owned a natural food store.
Okay.
I
So you
don't
had
know that I was
little
passionate
bits.
about it.
Yeah.
It just soaked into me, right? Like it
Yeah.
just was there, like the
Yeah.
awareness of food. I mean, we didn't know what sugar was growing up. We didn't eat sugar.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Right. That's something other houses may have exposure
Yeah.
to, right?
No.
Yeah. You don't need any more of that stuff.
No.
Wow. So, okay. So you saw that there was, these sugar fueled formulas that were on the market to feed your daughter, and you said, this is not going to fly. And
Yeah.
did you just start doing a bunch of research? Did you
So
experiment
yeah,
at home?
I had a friend that said she was blending for her disabled child as well. And she is really the one that helped get me started. She was a nurse. She had the education and the knowledge, and she was passionate about her son and feeding him well. And she ended up starting an entire community. And I happen to know her personally now. Her community is huge, and I love it.
Yeah.
And so she kind of helped point me in the right direction, right? And so then I went to my doctor and I just said, "Hey, can you just take a look at this formula, this blend I have? It's a blend of food, and just let me know if this works." Like I just, here I am in the doctor's office, 5 children in there, like climbing the walls. They're all little.
Right.
Okay.
And he's like, what do you want me to do?
Right. And as she's like, "Well, I'm not a scientist. I can't help you with that. And if you're going to continue down this path, then you can't be a patient of ours." And she fired
Ooh.
us. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That must have been quite a
it was
eye-opening moment.
terrifying.
Yeah.
It was really scary. I went home and sat in the chair and waited for social services to come take my children away because I'm going against doctor's orders, right? And it created so much fear in me and so much anger. Like, I'm feeding my child well, and I'm just asking for your input, But what I know today that I didn't know then is that doctors really have almost no education in nutrition, like almost
Right.
zero, right? And so she didn't have the confidence to help me, the confidence or the willingness, right? And so it's taken a lot of years for me to develop that compassion for the healthcare industry needed to sell a product to the healthcare industry, right?
Yeah.
But I finally have. And what I love is that now that I see, because it took me a lot of dietitians, because mostly I speak with dietitians, and it took a lot of dietitians saying, "We're on your side, Autumn." I'm like, and finally I heard them. "Oh yeah, you're on my side. It's just they're stuck with, this is how we've always done things. And so we keep doing them and we don't know how to break out of that. And we haven't been trained. So moms come in here more educated on blending food in the blender and putting it through a feeding tube than we know. So we don't know anything. So we can't teach them anything. And so it's been this really, I'm like, oh, you just need me to help you? I can help. Like, I can help.
Yeah.
Let me do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been this beautiful change of heart for me, and this connection with the healthcare industry of recognizing it's not that they don't care. It's just that they haven't been properly equipped,
Yeah. And perhaps they're just so, stuck in the day to day of this is what's going on, that they can't stop and say, you know what, there should be something different that we're doing that's healthier and better.
Right. And that's true. And, I've even had dietitians say, "Well, I get 60 seconds on a phone call with a patient. And if it takes longer, my job is at risk." And I'm just appalled at these things when I hear them. Yeah. And so, they see patients a certain amount of time, and then they start, if they take longer, which learning something new takes more time. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. So you saw who the people in the market were and you said, okay, I'm going to do my own. So you started obviously with your daughter and going out to,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
perhaps your local community to test it out, some friends and people in
So
your
yeah,
network.
so what happened? Yeah, so what happened is I wanted to go backpacking one day,
Mhm.
and with 5 children, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm
Very
going
brave.
backpacking. Yeah, what was I thinking? But the problem was I was carrying my daughter and a backpack, and it's very heavy, and so a liquid formula wasn't going to work. Like I had been making the blends, in the blender, and they needed to be refrigerated. I needed something shelf stable.
Yeah.
So then I started just for my daughter only. I just was like, okay, I'm making something for her so that we can use on backpacking trips.
Hmm.
And as we were out backpacking, I'm making up that first meal in the shaker bottle for her. And I'm like, everybody needs this. Like,
Hmm.
there's so many other tube fed people out there that don't have the freedom. I'm like out in the backcountry, and
Yeah.
the birds are singing and the wind is blowing through the trees, and it's
Right.
just like, okay, this is amazing. I can't keep it to myself, right?
Yeah.
Other people need this freedom and this quality of nutrition. And
Hmm.
so when I got back from that trip, that's when I started just jumping into, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't say anything to anyone. I just
Yeah.
quietly just started working on building a company and just working on recipes, because I'd made a
Hmm.
recipe for Story Grace, but what can you make commercially, right? It's a little bit
Hmm.
different, and what are the requirements and all of that. So I looked in and started researching all that, and yeah, I had no idea what it would
Yeah.
turn into, but I really love it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So there's one other female entrepreneur that I know has talked about not telling anybody about starting her
Mhm.
business, and Sarah Blakely from Spanx, and
Yes,
that
yes,
worked out well. So,
yes, it did.
uh,
Yeah. Well, you didn't need that negative feedback sometimes. Not that
yeah,
people are ill intentioned, right? They,
yeah,
but they're concerned. They're concerned for you. Well, Autumn, are you
yeah,
a dietitian? Are you a doctor? Are you a scientist? I'm a
yeah,
mom, and I think I'm
yeah,
perfectly capable of counting calories and doing the
yeah,
research and doing all that. I'm sure I can come up with something better than 55% sugar. I mean, come
yeah.
on.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's where the bar is set.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many roadblocks in starting a business, especially in the food and beverage industry, that yeah, you don't need that other negativity or
No.
doubt on top of it. But okay, so you were then experimenting with recipes. Did you work with the food scientists at all along the way, or
Yeah. Well, I tried to
yeah,
work with a co-packer to help. Just I thought I would just say, "Hey, this is what I want. Get me a formula, like, let's
uh-huh,
manufacture it," right?
yeah,
It didn't really work out that way. I
hmm,
told them my specs and what I wanted, and they worked on it for quite a while, and they came back and
hmm,
said that can't be done. So then I went to the next one, and then they said that can't be done. And so
okay,
finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure this out myself. And so
mhm.
that's what happened. So then I had to dig in even more. I mean, one time I'm on the phone with this guy. He's like, "I'm the person you call when you get into Target." Like, I'm like, okay, but since I have you,
Yeah,
can you tell me who I should be connecting with? Because
yeah,
I have no idea who I should be talking to,
yeah,
to start manufacturing and how this works. And I just
right.
called people and asked.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And come on, that guy probably has plenty of connections that you didn't at that point in
Yeah.
time. So you're probably much more well informed. So
Hmm.
that's amazing. So you worked out your recipe and you figured out how to get it manufactured. And so what was the timeline of that from coming back from that
So
backpacking trip to you had a viable product?
it was probably a year and a half at least, maybe
Hmm.
maybe a little bit longer, maybe closer to 2 years. But
Yeah.
yeah, it took some time. And then once I had something that I found worked at home, then I did take it back to the manufacturer and say, "This is what I want. This is how I did it.
Yeah.
These are the specs. Like, here you go." And all they had to do was like, "Okay, now we make it," right?
Yeah.
And so that um that was really an amazing experience. And
Hmm.
now I realize, like, it's something I had no idea how to do. I wasn't ever expecting to do this. And through it, it's been very interesting because being a stay-at-home mom and then working, I didn't know that I would love that or enjoy that part of
Mm-hmm.
it, but I love it.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy it. I always joke, I'm like, whoever thought I would like manufacturing? Who likes that? Like that's such a weird thing to but I love the process and I care deeply about it.
Yeah. There is something special about having that tangible product in your hand after all the work
Creating.
that you have putting
Hmm.
into.
Yeah.
So how did you go about building, that team that helped you get your product to market, whether it's, experts,
Yeah.
contractors, hiring
Hmm.
people?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I started with, an RD, a registered dietitian, because that was the most important. I'm going to be speaking to dietitians as I share the meals and just really having that expert on the team of like, okay, you can do the math for me, right? You can,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was fabulous, and she helped, um, really get the formula up and going. And then as we went to launch, it was just I'm trying to say it's just me and an RD, and
Mm-hmm.
because of the need for tube fed people had such a need for wholesome ingredients, they did the work, right? They shared. I always say we're very grassroots,
Mm-hmm.
and they started sharing and requesting from their doctors because I kept trying to talk to doctors like, okay, are you going to recommend? They're like, and I would talk to them and just kind of ask like, how's the best way to get into this? And because they don't use my product, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not that important to them. It's someone else. And so they kept saying, honestly, Autumn, usually the patients bring stuff like this to me. If it's new, the patients bring it to me and request it, right? And so that's
Yeah.
how it kind of started happening really organically. The tube fed community just started requesting it from their medical team, and they would reach out and get
Yeah.
in touch with us. And then a lot in the very beginning, I had moms of tube fed kids because what happens when you have a disabled kid? Well, a lot of times you have to give up your job, your career, because now
Mm-hmm.
you're staying at home to care for your child. They
Right.
get sick or they need the extra time. And so then you have all these accomplished moms at home caring for their, special needs kiddo. And so they're passionate about the product. They used it. It was users of ours, right? So they
Yeah.
were using whole story meals, and they're saying, we love this product. Our child's improved. How do we
Mm-hmm.
be involved? And it was really this win-win situation for all of us, because now someone calls in, they can talk to almost anyone on the team because we all know how to use the product, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, here's what I do. Here's my tips and tricks. Like, let me teach you here.
Oh,
And
how
so,
great.
yeah, it was just, um, I remember we hired a mom. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and she was needing help, and her son was really struggling, and he's going to school. She's like, but I need some work. Okay, well, let's get you set up. And during the time, she was like, Autumn, like we tested before we started on whole story meals, and now we've been on whole story meals a couple months, and our inflammation markers in my son's body have like almost completely gone away, and they were extremely high.
Oh,
And
amazing. Well, all that
so,
sugar is not in his diet anymore.
right. And so it's just like there's something about that, and that
Mm.
inspires the love and the loyalty
Oh, yeah.
of people around you, right? And they care and they want
Yeah.
to help other moms like themselves or other
Yeah.
families that are struggling. And so that's in the beginning how my
Mm-hmm.
team was started, was people that were doing this out of love and care.
Yeah. I mean, that's just an amazing process for you to have gone through to see the impact that your product has on people, but also to kind of see from a business perspective. I love hearing that because you really had to figure out your influencer model, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the parents going to the doctors and, these people that are using it for their family. And I mean, talk about great testimonials. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And it was very interesting because in the beginning, you're you're not you're selling when you're speaking to the healthcare clinicians, you're speaking to people that don't use your product.
Yeah.
And so you can say all this amazing stuff, but how hard are they going to fight for your product when it's not their life that's being changed by it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a really interesting like situation to be in. And so we just in the beginning decided to, okay, we're going to focus on the patient. And then we were able to add in the healthcare practitioners as we grew, right? And it's
Yeah.
kind of knowing what your limits are and really where you're going to get the most support and reception. And we had moms that would just fight for us so much, and they would make it so entire states, oh, now we carry whole story meals, and so that's been an amazing testament, just the advocacy of the moms.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about how your business has grown in terms of, you've talked about the adoption of your customer base, but how have you expanded through your retail channels or e-commerce as well as,
Yeah. So we've added meals that expand our market. So originally we started with enteral nutrition for, food for tube-fed people. But then one of the problems, my daughter was facing is she was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. And what happened there is the doctor's like, Autumn, her potassium's really high. That could cause heart problems. We've got to manage this. And you can help by changing her diet. And I'm thinking like, I'm feeding her a healthy diet. What are you talking about? But there's certain things that are high in potassium and phosphorus. So when you have chronic kidney disease, it's really beneficial to have a low protein, low potassium, low phosphorus, low sodium diet. Try to do those calculations. Okay.
Yeah.
I was losing my mind trying to
Wow.
make this diet for my daughter. And so I was just like, okay, we're going to create a formula, a meal that is real food. And it is the only real food, low protein, low potassium, low phosphorus, low sodium meal out there on the market for people with chronic kidney disease. And and no one would say she has chronic kidney disease anymore, right? We've changed.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I absolutely love that. So we've included that. We've been able to reach out to people and really support those with CKD. And we started, retail, and then we focused on patients. Then we focused, added the healthcare practitioners in that. And that's really been our process. And then expanding our meals. I did not know I was a creative person. I love creating meals. And I mean, I don't really cook that well. I'm not like, but I can come with a formula, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, that was going to be my next question. Yeah. So how are you in the kitchen?
Yeah, I'm good. I can make a fantastic Thanksgiving dinner, but the day to day, like, cooking, I'm like, this is more work than it's worth.
Yeah. I can feel you on that. That in and of itself feels like a third job I have outside of running a business, running my family, and cooking.
Yeah. Just drink some whole story meals.
Yeah. I will.
That's what I do. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a really fun process of being creative, and I have 20 million ideas, all lined up just for the moment. Right. And I love that. And it's been this, I've always said I'm not a creative person, but that wasn't accurate. Maybe I wasn't artistic, right? Yeah. But there's a lot of different ways to be creative. It doesn't just have to be in the artistic world or, and so I've really loved that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that too. It's, so you're really seeing problems now that are out there, audiences of people that are having, an issue, and you're coming up with solutions for them all in this nutrition, disease space. So, so for those that have the chronic kidney disease, are most of them then just making smoothies out of it and eating that throughout the day to help their condition?
Yeah, that's a great question. So It depends. It's just purely preference. They can do what we call a smoothie bowl. So it's kind of like a puree,
Hmm.
and you can put like little
Yeah.
shredded coconut and creme fraiche on it if you want,
Yeah.
however you want to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so, or you can drink it like a shake. You can turn it into a
Hmm.
smoothie. There's definitely different options that they can do. And
Yeah.
so we have recommendations depending on the severity of CKD that you're showing of like how many
Yeah.
meals a day do you replace with
Yeah.
this. And we've seen some great results. The thing that I love is that the labs, you can see the labs change within 2 weeks. And then we've had
Wow.
patients like going on to, they're like, oh, my doctor's got me signed up for, they kind of take classes to go on dialysis. I'm in the classes for dialysis and I'm going to be starting. I'm like, well, maybe let's just try this first. And then like 2 weeks, labs improve within 2 months. That particular lady, she was like, she went from almost being stage 5 to stage 3. So it was really
Wow.
awesome to see the improvement for her. And
Yeah.
I just love that. It's just so measurable.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I love
Hmm.
measurable data as well. But,
Hmm.
I mean, this is having such an impact on people's lives. And,
Yeah.
so when you see like some of the products that are out there in the market today and some of the ingredients that are in there, how does that make you feel?
Yeah. It's really frustrating because the the patients, the families that come to me, we have a lady, her son was puking blood. Unless he was on whole story meals, he would vomit blood.
Oh,
And then she
terrible.
still was fighting with the staff to get him off of the commercial formula because they have contracts, contracts with
Hmm.
the hospitals. So to get him off what the contracted formula was onto something, nutritious like what we were doing. And it was a tough battle, and it's just shocking. And it like I said, it's taken me some time to work through it. But when you see that the US dietary guidelines are that you have less than 10% sugar with less than 5% being optimal, and then you're feeding our most fragile members of society a diet of 55% sugars, like that's a problem. That's concerning, right?
Yeah.
That's not unacceptable. And then you wonder, oh, no wonder they said she would live to be 1 or 2 years old and pass away from the flu or pneumonia, right?
Yeah.
We're not feeding our tube fed loved ones well. And
Yeah.
that's pretty upsetting. And it's upsetting that I got fired for wanting to feed my daughter well. Now, the fabulous thing about this story is that doctor now recommends my formulas. I mean, I'm not sure if she knows who I am or that it's me. She
Ah,
must not.
I love that. That's the whole
Mhm.
story meals coming full circle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that again shows it wasn't that she didn't care or want to feed nutritious food. It was the lack of experience or expertise and like the training.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to really think about it and how we got to that point in our life in our society that people thought that that was okay to do that. But we're so lucky to have someone like you and your company to bring better options to people. Um, I want to ask you some questions about parenthood and entrepreneurship. And
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned you have 5 children.
Mm-hmm.
You were a stay-at-home mom, and this is something that you weren't really anticipating, but were called to do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
how was that balance of starting a
Yeah.
business with raising kids?
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it's interesting because since I didn't tell anyone, I wasn't under this schedule. I had to make it
Yeah.
by a certain time, right? So I worked at the pace I could back then. But then as it's grown, and everyone knows I'm doing
Yeah.
this, and I actually
Yeah.
have to run and manage people. I'm not just in the closet like hiding doing this in my
Right.
spare time. Um, Gary Keller, the author of The One Thing, he said there's, work-life balance is a myth,
Yeah.
right? And I
100%.
agree. Like, yeah, it's more like counterbalance. And you think of it as this pendulum that swings one way and then it has to come back enough. And that's kind of what I've realized. And I I work really hard still to be done by the time my children come home from school so that I can be present. That doesn't always happen, but I also get up pretty early to start my
Mhm.
day, and while they're still snoozing, I'm working, right? And
Yeah.
so that I can participate
Mhm.
and be there for the meaningful things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, so important to them. I think it's important to them both to see you doing something that makes you so happy and
Hmm.
fulfilled, and then
Hmm.
also to be there for them when they need you. So,
Yeah.
but it is like I agree with you. It's, there is no work life balance. I think,
Right.
when I kind of realized that if I'm going to give myself to my business and I'm going to give myself to being a mother,
Hmm.
there was no clear delineation between that time. So if I needed to leave work during the day to go to my daughter's, performance at
Hmm.
school, so
Yeah.
be it.
Yeah.
And there
Right.
would be some other time to,
Hmm.
reschedule phone calls and get,
Yes. And
prepare.
I love this since I mean, I make my own schedule, right? So it's
Yeah.
that stuff is always a priority and blocked off ahead of time. And even, Gary Keller says like you block off your vacation first. That's the first thing
Yeah.
that's done every year. And
Yes.
I'm with you. Like
Yeah.
I have three boys in high school football right now. So like
Hmm.
every Thursday and Friday night is
Yeah.
completely booked, right?
Yeah.
And so that's that's how those big things, those things that are important, those are blocked off first, right?
Yeah.
My family is number one, but I have such a flexible schedule. Okay, then they're sleeping in Saturday morning, I'm up and working.
Hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And then the team that you've put in place too,
Mm-hmm. Oh
I've
yeah.
come to learn too, like, not being able to do everything myself and
Yeah.
really having to rely on the people around me, especially as
Yeah.
the number of my children increased. So,
Yeah, right. I mean,
yeah.
I always joke like I'm not even needed here. Like why do I keep showing up to work? My team has it, right? It's
Yeah.
just checking in. And that's the one thing I really value is I genuinely believe I could walk away for weeks at a time and everything would just keep going like clockwork. Like they're the ones that handle the hard stuff, the burden. Um,
Yeah.
they come to me when they get stuck, but they're
Hmm.
the ones doing the day in, day out, the really hard work of the minute details, right?
Right. All right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's keeping the gears going. But, the
Yeah.
work that you're doing of the visionary side of the business,
Mm-hmm.
the thinking of the new
Mm-hmm.
recipes and the new audiences that you want to support is the stuff that you
Mm-hmm.
then have the freedom to think of, right? When they're
Yes.
working on the day to day.
And it's been interesting. Something I've really found that I didn't understand when I started this. I was in the beginning, I was like, I'm busy. I don't have time to go hiking. I'm busy. I don't have time for a break. But what that has been what fuels me is when I take that hiking break, then all the
Yeah.
pieces like click together. It's like this magic puzzle that happened. They're like, oh, I
Yeah.
solved all the problems that I had. I should have just gone hiking way
Mhm.
sooner, right? That has actually been the
Yeah.
answer is just go hiking sooner. It's like when you get stuck,
Mhm.
it's you have to have that mind shift to get out of that like that the office, get out and do something different, change your brain, really,
Yeah.
go work out, whatever it is. And then you come back and it's like, oh, problem solved. Was there a problem before? And then,
Yeah.
even with talking about, the kids that you mentioned, I love to talk to my kids about business.
Mhm.
My twins right now are 14. They're going to be 15 soon. And then my 17-year-old, 19-year-old, like we discuss business. Like that's one of the things we always talk about. And I bring them in on situations and problems and I explain what's going on. And so I want them to have this head start, this mindset, and be
Yeah.
thinking and knowing the terminology. Because the sooner you start hearing the terminology, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I hear my mom talk about that. I know what COGS is, I know what profit
Yeah.
is, right? Like here I'm teaching
Yeah.
and I keep inviting them to go do stuff with meetings with me, but they won't do it yet. I don't know why. Maybe they're bored, but I always want to include them and give them that knowledge. And so that's just another way to connect. And I'm open, like, Mom, what's going on? What's wrong? Oh, having a hard day. I've got a problem I got to solve. What do you think? I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. I love that too. Get them involved, let them, see the situations that you're going through. I think it gives them a different perspective. Not everything is
Yeah.
textbook. This is real life. And this is
Mm-hmm.
what, as adults, we have to kind of turn through and
Right.
figure
Yeah.
out. So I think
Yeah.
that's amazing that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And they're going to be,
Mm-hmm.
well off to, as they
They're
enter
gonna
their
be
careers, to know
way
these
ahead of
things.
where I was.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like, real world learning.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also ask you about just, every entrepreneur goes through points where they're like, why am I doing this? Why did I choose
Mm-hmm.
to put this burden upon
Mm-hmm.
myself? Were there any
Yeah.
moments that you kind of second guessed your path of starting this business?
I don't know that I've ever second guessed it because I believed so much in what we were doing. It wasn't like I never second guessed whole story meals. I did second
Mm-hmm.
guess myself. Can I
Mm.
do this? Am I enough? Right. That's
Yeah.
been, it's never like, will whole story meals? Like, yeah, if it fails, it's my fault because it's so
Yeah.
perfect for people. It's so
Yeah.
needed. And that's even like, okay, this is so important that if if something goes wrong, I know that's on me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's been the thing that's been hard, is really having to play catch up and really surround myself. You talk about the team with people that know more than
Yeah.
I do. And
Yeah.
it is really humbling to go into these meetings and hire people
Mm-hmm.
and try to ask questions. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. Like, it sounds good,
Sounds good.
and
Yeah.
so then what I have to do is I pull in someone, a business friend, someone with more experience than I have, and
Yeah.
join the interview with me. Will you
Mm-hmm.
participate and help me? And so I've, I've really learned how to
Mm-hmm.
manage my weaknesses and my, and make it a strength of like, I'll just ask whoever I need to ask for help and say,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't an area I really know or understand. Will you help teach it to me and help me find someone that can support me in that area? Right.
Right.
Um, it's very humbling to do that and try to do interviews with the folks that have major expertise in these areas. And, but it's been great. I've really gotten used to, I remember as a kid, I would never ask questions. I didn't want to be embarrassed, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not, I don't want people to know I don't know anything,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but now I ask all the questions
Mm-hmm.
and I see what that gets me. And I don't ever think now, like, that's a dumb question. I
Yeah.
just ask it because if I don't ask, Whole Story Meals pays. I pay.
Yeah.
My daughter pays. The tube fed community pays.
Yeah.
Someone has to ask the questions and be willing to not know things, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I feel like
That's a
here
great
I
point.
am. Here I am. Like, I'm willing to not understand, and I need you to explain the basics to me. Oh, and can you explain it again?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I've seen massive growth in me personally, is just recognizing, because it was a mission bigger than myself. I
Yeah.
think if it had just been about me, my ego might have gotten in the way a bit, but this is for my
Mm-hmm.
daughter and for her
Yeah.
life and for the
Right.
other tube fed people, for their lives. And so it's been a humbling journey, but it's definitely
Yeah.
been worth it. And I have wondered if can I really do this? But every year we keep going and keep making it, because you
Mm-hmm.
just can't in this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point of, maybe there's a little bit having to do with the age and just being more comfortable with yourself and just not knowing, not knowing the information is okay. But I think the
Yeah.
point that what's driving you is so much bigger than, however you may
Yeah.
feel by not asking the
Yeah.
question.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the future of Whole Story look like? Where's
Oh
the business headed?
yeah. Oh man. I I always joke like I want to take over the world, right? That's my thing. I just like I want I want the future to be real food is the first option for tube fed people, not the last. Because right now the situation is for Medicare to cover a blenderized tube feeding option, you have to fail a sugar formula twice, which means the U.S. dietary guidelines that they recommend, they also prevent you from getting, which I consider to be discrimination, right? You're
Yeah.
saying we recommend that people have a diet of less than 10% sugar with less than 5% being optimal and have fruits and vegetables. Oh, but you're tube fed? No, we're refusing. It's too expensive. We're not going to spend the money on you. You have to have a sugar formula. And to me, that's unacceptable. That's
Yeah.
the ethics in that is extremely concerning. And how that's
Absolutely.
continuing to go on is mind blowing. And the fact that I have to continue to help doctors and dietitians see this as a problem is very frustrating. And
Yeah.
so for me, the future is really like we want to see that transition happening. Tube fed
Mm-hmm.
people matter. Their lives matter. Their
Mm-hmm.
families matter. They have value. My daughter is the sweetest, most precious little thing and has taught me so much. Like before she was born, I feel like I saw the world in black and white. And now I see it in
Mm.
this rich, vibrant color. I had no idea you need that deep pain and those
Yeah.
hardships to create that rich, vibrant color, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where we're going with this is like just helping tube fed people because when you are on your own, let's say you've lost your job, it's I don't know, it's like it's like 80% of families that have special needs, they get divorced, right? So
Yeah.
you've lost your job, you've gone through a divorce, you're fighting for your child's life, and then you're fighting the practitioners to eat well for your kid. Um, it's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so for
Right.
me, I would say the future is to see that change happen and to see tube fed people being fed well and just really going forward and supporting the health of people
Mm-hmm.
through nutrition. It just gives me so much joy. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful sentiment, everything that you said. And uh, we wish you all the best luck on this journey. And
Yeah.
I have no doubt that you will succeed. You could see your passion, throughout you talking. I have one final question for you today.
Okay.
And so, what has been your recipe to revenue?
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't start my business to start a business, right? I started it to solve a problem. I was trying to help my daughter. And it's taken a lot of grit to continue on with that. I would say, you know, having that problem to solve, that real world problem, and the grit and determination to keep going, and the compassion and empathy, the desire to to make the best product for my daughter and for those like her. And when your focus is quality and doing the best that you're able to do, that that really solves a lot right there. It's not, for me, it's not been focusing on how much to make. I mean, my first customer, I asked him, how much do I charge you? Right? I didn't
Yeah.
know. Right?
Yeah.
It's different when you're reimbursed by insurance and it works
Sure.
like that. That's not why I started this. I started it for the need, right?
Yeah.
And just chose not to give up.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Grit is such a key component of making this happen, but especially for the cause that you are fighting for through your product every day. Autumn, thank you so much for joining me on Recipe to Revenue. It's been such an honor to have you here and to have you share your story with everybody. Where should people find you and connect with you?
Yeah. Um, I'm at wholestorymeals.com. We have an Instagram, Whole Story Meals. Me personally, I'm at Raisin Wild on Instagram. So yeah, those are the ways you can connect with us. And we would love to hear from you, love to hear your stories, love for you to fight for us, all those
Yeah.
good things.
Fantastic. And we'll include those links down in our episode description as well. And look for the blog post on our site, which will link out to all these things that Autumn just mentioned to make it easy for you. So, Autumn, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.